Good morning. I'm going to set the stage for the discussion on how we aspire and occasionally manage to actually get stuff done in our library. So just to set the stage, the current climate in academic libraries and archives can be problematic. We care about stuff like memory, transparency, access, and preservation. But I can speak as an archivist. We're already struggling with the analog content and obsolete media that's already coming through our doors. So when people ask us about websites, it's very easy for us to say, well, that's not our problem. Isn't the Internet Archive dealing with that, or archives team? We will try to just deal with the problems that are immediately in front of us. And of course, this isn't a new problem. We just don't like dealing with it, and often we don't have the support, the mandate, or access to the content to really tackle that issue. So I guess we should also say that we are framing our conversation within the context as information professionals that are working within the protection and privilege of academic freedom. So we have it, and we might as well exercise it. So to repeat, this is not a new problem. Archivists have been dealing with this issue for a long time. This is a lovely Exhibit A, a lecture from Hugh Taylor from 1972. And I don't think anyone can read that, and I will follow the microphone better. So just to be clear, Hugh is shaking his finger at us from 1972, telling us about the dangers of the academic Dolce Vita and the importance of getting involved and for archivists to learn how to do that computer thing. Now, Hugh Taylor is giving us advice, but we're also receiving advice in the present day. So this is a quote from Cecilia Muir, and she is the chief, or I believe she still is, the chief operating officer at Library Archives Canada. And this is a direct quotation from her response to a question from the floor at the ACA conference in Whitehorse in 2012. So that's the Association of Canadian Archivists. So Muir was responding to a question from the floor regarding the perceived lack of leadership and advocacy by the administration at LAC in the face of significant cuts in 2012. And I'm pretty sure most of you can read that, but she responded saying, our job is to serve the government and the ministers that we report to. Our job is to keep the institution relevant and to keep it focused on a path where it can still continue to deliver its mandate with fewer resources. The minute we become activists, we're going to lose our judgment and our perspective on how to do that. That is, deliver on the mandate with fewer resources. So, more quotes. This is from Brian Brotherman, now this is from 1992, but I love this quote. And he's also shaking his finger, maybe slightly more gently than Hugh Taylor, saying, for archivists to abstain from cultural awareness and criticism is tantamount to professional irresponsibility. And in a sense, Brian often talks about this aspect of our profession, and he repeatedly warns us that if we ignore the cultural mandate of the imperative of our profession, so I'm speaking as an archivist, but also in terms of libraries, in favor of an administrative point of view and role, the profession will lose vitality, which I think is a polite way of saying we'll become irrelevant, which we're always worried about. So, do we, as archivists, just throw ourselves into an irrational activist frenzy? Maybe not. I love this image. It's so beautiful. And I feel it really illustrates the fact that when things go wrong in the physical world, it can be very obvious. However, online, there can be catastrophic loss of documentation, and we won't even know it's happened until it's too late. And again, let's be clear. I'm not talking about some kind of nostalgic hysteria about 1990s X-File fan sites, although those are culturally relevant. What we're talking about today is our websites and online documents that can be deleted, lost, and irretrievable, but that we have a legal obligation to preserve. And I guess a case in point was there was a story on Twitter yesterday about the Supreme Court in the US and how there's a study that came out in 2011 that 40% of their links don't work anymore. So, food for thought. Onward.
Is the mic okay? Is it here? Good? Okay. So I'm going to talk really quickly and then hand it back over to Anna. So I'm going to kind of set the stage for the pilot projects we've been doing at York with Y-File, our daily university newspaper, and our academic calendars. So about a year ago, I was in a meeting and I was presented with this problem. So Y-File, this is Y-File. It's our daily university newspaper, and it used to be paper, but then it's moved online. It was taken over by marketing, and they deleted all of their bad content. It was kind of a freak out. So it's not, they weren't malicious, but it's kind of a culture of now, and they're not aware of things that we're aware of. So it's, I'm not here to condemn them or anything. It's more just to educate them, and we've been working with them for the last year to do this. So since they're official university publication, they're part of the official university record. So it'll eventually end up in the university archives, which is the archives where Anna works. So it eventually becomes our problem. So to get ahead of the problem and the whole records transfer thing, this is the project we're going to talk about this. So to put it a different way, many institutions have a strategy in place for transforming or transferring official university records that are print or tactile to university archives, but not much exists strategy-wise for websites. So we naively decided to tackle this.
So, yep, we want to show that we care about stuff, but we also care about strategic stakeholders within the university, that we can care about their stuff too, just as much, if not more. And as Nick has mentioned, we're making an investment in future relations. So if we can tackle this problem, it hopefully builds a relationship of trust where they'll be more willing to give us records that are we should be receiving as part of the common record schedule, but often there's some hesitancy. And as Nick has said, the Y-File and the calendars are public documents. They also fall into the common record schedule, but they're low-hanging fruit, so we can sort of grab them without having to ask permission, sit on a committee, chair a working group, just to sort of get stuff done.
All right. So now I'm going to talk about the actual, like, what we've been doing. So if you don't want to listen to me talk and you want to stare at code for like the next 30 minutes, you can do that. Our daily archiving scripts are in our York University Libraries Git repo, and the web archive solution pack that I built is in my Git account. So I tend to just do things. I don't ask permission. I apologize later if I have to. Like the first time I crawled Y-File, I took their server down, which is good because I make mistakes and you learn from your mistakes. And what I'm doing isn't really new, but it kind of is new. It's like this really weird place if I have to crawl a website every day, and the Internet Archive crawler only comes around whenever it comes around, and there's no way to give the Internet Archive a whole whack of warks and be here, take these, put them in the Wayback Machine. And the other thing is I really don't want to play for archive it right now because I kind of have some sense how to reverse engineer it. So the problem is I need to capture and preserve a website every single day. And in the case of the academic calendars, I need to grab them twice a month. So I want to provide the best material to a researcher, and I want to keep a fine eye on preservation while I'm doing it. And I don't want to be a digital pack rat. And then I also have to kind of keep this voice in my head between the librarian and the archivist that always fight over the item versus the collection and which one gets the most attention. So how easy is it to archive a website? It's really, really easy if you're using the newest version of wget, which is wget 1.14, and that's when there was a fork of it like a year or two ago, and the Internet Archive team put in the work support, and then it got merged back into core. So what you can do is just on the command line, if you have it, do wget and pass it the wark file flag, give it a file name, and then give it the site you want to go get. So this is only going to grab the first page it gets, so the index file. You throw in different flags like mir and grab the page requisites and no compression and wait time and stuff like that, and you can grab a whole site. And it's in a wark file. So what are warks? How many people here know what a work file is? Okay. So what a work stands for Web Archive. It's an ISO standard, and it's basically a file that can get really, really, really big, really quick if you're not paying attention, and it aggregates all the resources that you request into a single file along with crawl metadata and checksums, so you have your provenance, which I really, really like provenance. And so looking at a WARC, this is what the beginning of a WARC looks like. So at the top part, up until where you see the Y file news, that's the WARC header. So if you have information about what version it's complying to, your file name, some fixity information, what spec it confirms to, and then the arguments you pass to create the work. And then below, we see our very first request of a file. And then if we go again, we're a little bit further down in this particular WARC file, and we're starting to see, so we have a request. So we have HTTP 200 OK, and then we have the actual document we've requested. So this is, in this case, an HTML file. But if there's any images or PDF files or any type of files, like binary files, they're all wrapped in here in the WARC. So there's this thing, which I could talk about for another hour, the web archiving lifecycle. If you're familiar with the digital curation lifecycle, it's very, very much inspired by it, and it seems familiar. So it's a thing, and it's very important. You should check it out, because I don't have time to talk about it for 40 minutes. But this document came out in about March of this year, and it's put out by the Internet Archive. And the good news is, so it came out after we started doing this, and it confirmed that we're doing a lot of stuff well, and it also confirmed that I was doing some stuff wrong, and we went back and tweaked it. So appraisal and selection and scoping, that's our daily stuff. Data capture, that's it. But the big thing for us, it was quality assurance and analysis, is going back and looking at the WARCs going through the viewer and make sure they play back well. And some sites don't play back well when they're crawled, and you have to grab some other stuff. Needless to say, I've learned an immense amount from this, and if you're interested in web archiving, you should check out this document. So this is how I actually capture and preserve websites. You'll kind of get the hint throughout this presentation. I really love bash scripts. So the top part, we have some variables, and I create like a stub descriptive mods record. And then later on, where the actual action happens, I use the X-frame buffer to do screenshots. So I do an image in a PDF. And I took this from Peter Binkley, because I saw his code, because he shares his code, and it's awesome. And then I go out and I grab wget. I use wget to grab the site every day, and then I throw it over to the Wayback Machine, and then I log it, and then I have a little, so this actually creates my Sept to put into Fedora. So, oh, it's not playing. That sucks. Okay, that was my goofy joke to make Declan happy. So WARCs are a little bit weird to deal. So WARCs are a little weird to deal with on their own. You can disseminate them with the Wayback Machine, and nobody except for I can think of like 2 or 3 people on this planet want to see a page full of WARC files. So building something browsable takes a little bit more work. So what do? So I've been running that script on cron since last October. So I have like almost 365 daily crawls of the Y file, and twice a month for the academic calendars. So what I did is I started working with the tools and the platforms that I know. So in this case, it's Drupal, Islandora, and Fedora Commons, and I created a solution pack. And a solution pack in Islandora terminology is a Drupal module that integrates with the main Drupal the main Islandora module and the Tuke API to allow you to deposit and create derivatives and then interact with a given object. So in Islandora, we have solution packs for audio, video, large images, regular images, PDFs, and page content like books and newspapers. So what does the Web Archive Solution Pack do? It adds all the required Fedora objects to allow users to ingest, create derivatives, and retrieve web archives, all through the Islandora interface. So what we have are content models, data stream composites, models, forms, and collection policies. And the current iteration of the module allows one to batch ingest a bunch of objects to a given collection, And then it'll create derivatives. So we have image derivatives, so with the screenshots, so I have a thumbnail and a display image. And then I've also incorporated work tools support. So I create a CSV file using work index that's a CSV of every single file that's in that capture. So a researcher can get a quick look if they're looking for a particular file. They can hit that and go for it. And then I also do like pseudo full text search using the work tools, because you can do a transform and you can just take out things by MIME time. So I just grab all of the text. So then I give that to Solar. And then if you're familiar with Fedora content models, this is just a basic visualization of what it looks like in Fedora. So we have our main work archival object, and then we have our data streams. We have the PDF from the capturing. We have descriptive metadata with mods, and it's transformed to DC. We have the screenshot, which is the ping. We have the index, which is the CSV file using work index. The full text search. Then we have fits, our technical metadata, and then our thumbnail and our JPEG. So, because I didn't want to do a live demo, I took screenshots. This is a shot of all the websites that or some of the websites we crawl for the free Dale Ascii collection. So each one of these is a particular collection of sites, and then the next is, in terms of the web archiving life cycle, we have a bunch of seeds, or in layman terms, this is a particular daily crawl. And then if you click on one of the seeds, you get the individual crawl. So this is the top, so it's kind of a longer page. So this is the screenshot of Y file on March 26th of this year. And if you scroll down, you get your descriptive metadata, and you get your downloads. You can grab the work file if you really want, the PDF if you really want, the screenshot and the CSV of all the files, and then some just really dumbed down descriptive metadata that I automatically create every day. And then finally, we have the keyword searching. So if anybody's familiar with John Grayson and Tariq Lubani, who are in jail in Egypt, this is kind of my proof of concept. I did a query for John Grayson and Tariq Lubani, and we got 4 results back, and then I think the story broke in Y file on August 28th. I think it's the bottom one. So that's it. Now it's back over to Anna.
All right. Okay. So this is the part of the presentation where we're not going to shake our fingers at you, but we're going to gently encourage everybody to start working on the topics and content that you want attention drawn to, if you're not already doing that. I'm thinking about, I was at a conference recently at Bryn Mawr College about digital history, women's history and the digital world. And there was a plenary by Laura Mandel, and it was a great sort of prompt for further discussion. In essence, what she was advocating for was the embodiment of theoretical approaches, but not necessarily making those ideas explicit. Instead, we should seek to subvert and question while maintaining a robust and intellectual structural system that becomes part of the ongoing conversation within the profession. So, in many ways, I'm going to have to do work that doesn't inspire me. I'm going to have to learn new tools and write documentation and train my colleagues on new stuff. And if I have to do that, I might as well use content that interests me and that I feel deserves more recognition or a higher profile in the conversation. So, and because I have academic freedom, woohoo! Not enough to avoid writing documentation, but enough that I can choose how I document. And that's how I can learn new stuff, by emphasizing things I'm worried about. Yeah.
So as I was working on the web archiving stuff, the Y file and the academic calendars, this guy happened. And so Dale is my former boss. Dale's my former boss at McMaster, and through all of the chaos that happened at McMaster, we were kind of able to rise above it and form a very good relationship, and maybe a friendship. So he put a call out asking for volunteers to help him, And I immediately jumped up and I said I would take care of the web archiving because it interested me and I was already doing stuff. So what I did is I started with the initial list of sites that John Dupuy pulled together. So if anybody knows John Dupuy, he creates like these bibliographies of posts and websites about current events and drama and academia. So the first time I crawled it, I crawled every single site by hand. It was about 60 sites, and I was like, I don't want to do this by hand every day. So I thought about it a bit, and I talked to Dale, and we kind of figured out what we should do, and we figured we should capture these sites every day. So to create a record or an archive of this still unfolding story, to see if anything has been taken down, to see how comments unfold over time, and how organizations don't understand that cool URLs don't change. I'm looking at ARL and CAPL and COUT. But really, we just have to document this because we can and because we have the power to do it. So another project, which is mostly Bash script again. I love Bash scripts. I love cheesy names. So I created this little project. This is how I do my daily crawls of all of the Dale ASCII stuff. As I have yet another Bash script that goes out and does this. And what I do here is I just iterate through a text file line by line, which is this file. And it's up to like 270 now. Peter Benkley's jumped in every once in a while to give me a hand and stuff, and it's pretty awesome. So I've been archiving all of this since February, and my first proof of concept for the Web Archive Solution Pack came from this. So Anna mentioned these two quotes earlier, and she also she got me to read this book, which is pretty awesome, where these two quotes come from. And I love them very, very, very much. And I love them so much, I'm going to make you listen to me read them right now. So, for archivists to abstain from cultural awareness and criticism is tantamount to professional responsibility. And that one's Brian Brockman. They both are, right? Yeah. Yeah, they kind of go together in the text. And the bottom one is another guy quoting Brian. The warning is that if archivists ignore the cultural mandate of their profession in favor of an administrative point of view and a role, the profession will lose vitality. So this is kind of, don't switch it yet. This is kind of, it speaks to my heart, and it's kind of the reason why I do a lot of this stuff I do. So I'm not just creating this collection for Dale and to help him out, but to document this and make it available for researchers and, of course, learn how all of this stuff works. So given the PLG's mandate and their stance, we put out a couple statements on the lawsuits. We thought it was a very good home for the collection and then also a finding aid. So what is the PLG GTA? So that we are Toronto area library workers who are concerned with social justice and equality issues. Bear with me because I'm going to read this. Charged with the stewardship of knowledge, championing open access to information, and preserving common space. We are interested in the issues of freedom of expression, attacks on Canadian heritage, freedom of information, privacy, censorship, copyright, equitable access to information, the fostering of critical information literacy, and the broad social implications of the commodification of information and increasing corporate influence on libraries. As library workers, we recognize that the increasing lack of job security, deprofessionalization, and casualization of our profession threatens the free public sphere, which makes an independent, democratic civil society possible. So this is my tribe and my people, and they inspire me very, very much. So what we did, we created the Free Dale ASCII collection, and it's a repository of all the letters of support and blog posts about this whole event. So we have the 15 letters of support from organizations and associations, and then we have over 200 sites that we've crawled. And I think we're up to like 46,000 objects right now. Now it's your turn again.
Hi. I like to talk about anxiety, so I'm going to talk about that now. So my shop has to implement a new descriptive workflow, and we're going to be installing ICA Atom, now known as Atom, in the near future. So I'm the de facto lead on that project. I will be writing all the documentation and training all my coworkers. Lots of fun. So I have to do this, and I decided this will be a great opportunity to sort of play around with Atom and create a finding aid around the Dale ASCII collection, just so I could work out the kinks and figure out some of the scenarios that our shop wants to ensure is possible within the Atom software. So I have to do that. That's unpleasant. But I get to work with the Dale ASCII stuff, which is very exciting, but also causes anxiety, because as an archivist, there are no archivists in the room, maybe? No, never mind. Most of my processing is arm's length, in the sense that there's a definite division in time and space when a document ends and it arrives at my workspace. And that can be freeing in many ways, in the sense that our donors are either dead or enough time has passed that they are indifferent or much more willing to collaborate on how the records get arranged and described. This scenario was very close, in the sense that things were happening day to day, and when I sat down to start describing the materials that we had captured, there was a lot of emotional investment in terms of how the comments would be described and arranged, and in some ways I felt, it's not necessarily claustrophobic, but very close, and a lot of the strategies I used was more as a historian and a journalist than necessarily as an archivist. So anxiety is difficult, but it makes us do exciting things. Oh, I'm still speaking. Yeah. Onwards. So this is still a work in progress description of the Save Dale ASCII collection. So you're welcome to link to that. I think most of them are live. And certainly by creating the finding aid, we're providing some structure and a sort of interpretive frame from which the public can access and contextualize the material that we captured. I think, too, it reinforces the fact that this is not a neutral crawl of materials. This was a very consciously sought out and documented preservation strategy, and we were focusing on specific sites that we learned about over time. So often there's a time lag, and in many ways we're still working to create that frame. And one of the things I'm still working on is creating authority records, not only for the authors of the blog posts or the individuals or organizations that created the letters of support, but also the individuals who are commenting, which is one of the more important elements of this event, is to track who is commenting where and trying to trace who's making those comments, anonymous and otherwise. So now we both speak.
Yeah. So there are a lot of challenges with web archiving, and one of the big things is JavaScript. If you go to a site called, it's a Tumblr, I think it's Sci JavaScript, you'll see how many sites that you can't really load without human interaction or having JavaScript enabled. So like one of the things when we do crawls, I make it look like I'm a human with a Firefox browser, and I go out and I do a random wait between things. So I get stuff. But the other thing is, so like when we're doing some of the crawls with the Dale ASCII stuff, is some of the sites use Discuss, the commenting service, and that only loads the first 50 or so comments, and then you kind of lose track of them. And I don't think there is a way to load them all at once. There might be. I looked the other day. And the other thing was the Facebook, yeah, we couldn't get anything on Facebook, any of that discussion. And then we didn't do any Twitter archiving, but we could have, and we should have. But there is stuff out there. Ed Summers at Library of Congress wrote Twark. I think it's Twark. But it's a Twitter archiving client, which grabs everything down in JSON and the other stuff.
I think too, one of the things that we found a challenge is the fact that we're sort of actively engaging. Sorry, I'm reading my notes because I want to say it right. I don't want to get sued. We're actively engaging in some of the same ideas and issues that the Mellon Press publicly claims to be concerned about. So this is the idea of, are online comments public? Are they part of the public discourse? Do people have the freedom to participate in public debate online without fear of legal retribution or academic bullying, according to the Mellon Press? So in many ways it was sort of a very conscious effort to engage with the technology, and in the sense that it's not a bias, like it's a completely biased activity, which sometimes I hope we're moving beyond that, this idea of like, it's technology, there's no politics involved. There is always politics involved. And duplication.
Yeah.
So I know Nick talked about not being a digital pack rat, but the fact remains that some of the blog sites, as happens, there would be a flurry of comments, and then it sort of would just die down. But we kept archiving them. And at some point, we're going to have to go through and dedupe, de-accession, and then document that decision making. So it doesn't look like we're excising the record. Right. We're just getting rid of dupes. So that's down the road. That I'm not looking forward to doing that because that is all by hand. Thank you.